Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, welcome back to Cross Culture Understanding class with Miss Intan. In these sessions, we will learn about culture and its elements in business context part 2. In these sessions, the objectives are students are able to understand the culture and elements, and the students are able to understand business context in cross-cultural countries. Okay, so we go to the religious and ethical systems. Religion also plays a big role in culture, especially in countries where a single religion is dominant. We define religion as the systems of shared beliefs and rituals that are concerned with the realm of the sacred. The religions with the greatest following today are Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. You might also include Confucianism with these kinds of religions. While not strictly a religion, Confucianism influences behavior and shapes culture in many parts of Asia. Religion is a system of shared beliefs and rituals that are concerned with the realm of the sacred. Religions with the greatest following are Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Countries differ in terms of language or means of communication, so there are two forms of language, spoken and unspoken. Language is one of the defining characteristics of the culture itself. Now, let's move on to look at how language defines culture. Language, of course, is how we communicate with each other both in the spoken form and in the unspoken form, but it's also how we perceive the world. Think for a minute about snow. You might say, "Oh, look, it's snowing," and your friend would know exactly what you mean, but the Eskimo people would have no idea what you meant. Why not? Because they have 24 different ways of describing what you probably think of as only snow. Countries with more than one spoken language often have more than one culture. Chinese is the mother tongue of the largest number of people in the world. Meanwhile, English is the most widely spoken language in the world and is becoming the language of international business. However, knowledge of the local language is beneficial and in some cases critical for business success. We mentioned earlier that some countries have more than one distinct culture. Does this mean they have more than one language too? Very often, the answer is yes. You probably already know that Canada has both an English-speaking and a French-speaking area, both with their own cultures. Belgium is divided into Flemish and French speakers, and 4 different languages are spoken in Switzerland. Do you know which language is the most widely spoken language in the world? If you answer English, you're right. But keep in mind that Chinese is the mother tongue of the largest number of people. Now you may be wondering if it is important, given that English is so widely spoken in the business world, to learn a foreign language. The answer is yes. Remember that just because people may speak English, it may not be the English you're familiar with. One American executive with M.Pd recently wasn't sure whether to be concerned or happy with his British client called to say she was chuffed to the mint balls. A late-night translation by his British colleagues reveals that she was happy. For years, China has had a reputation for making poor English translations. In fact, the translations are commonly known as Chinglish. For example, instead of finding a sign for an handicapped restrooms, signs might refer to the toilets for deformed persons. Stay off the grass signs on the park lawns are translated into show mercy for the slender grass. In 2007, China decided that in anticipation of holding 2008 Summer Olympics, it was time to try to correct public signage. So, the country established teams of linguistics monitors to go around Beijing and look for signs that have poor translations. Many Westerners are now lamenting what they believe is a passing of a cultural tradition. Now, let's talk about the unspoken language. Think for a moment about how you stand when you're talking with another person. You probably stand about an arm's length away, but in Latin America, people tend to stand much closer together. Now, picture yourself at a business meeting with someone from Brazil. He might try to stand at his customary distance, causing you to take a step backward because he is invaded your personal space. You may be annoyed at him for standing so close to you, and he may interpret your response as aloofness. Your meeting is already off to be a bad start. It's very important in international business to understand nonverbal cues. Think for a moment about the circle you might make with your thumb and forefinger. In the US, you've signaled as a positive response, but if you make the same gesture in Greece, you've just insulted someone. So, because facial expressions, hand gestures, and other types of unspoken languages can mean different things in different cultures, it is important to do your homework before meeting with someone from another cultures. This is this unspoken language. Unspoken language means non-verbal cues, and examples include facial expressions and hand gestures. And it also can be important for the communications. And many non-verbal cues are culturally bound, and because they may be interpreted differently, can result in misunderstandings. Another element of culture is education. You already know that formal education is important to gain the skills you need to be productive in modern society. But did you know that a country's education system can be an important determinant of competitive advantage? Michael Porter has pointed out that Japan's success story began with its well-educated workforce. Today, India is an attractive destination for investment because of its well-educated workforce. A country's education system can also be an indicator of what products might sell well and what types of promotional materials should be used. So, in a country where literacy rates are low, written promotions won't work well. Formal education is the medium through which individuals learn many of the language, conceptual, and mathematical skills that are indispensable in a modern society. The knowledge-based training and educational opportunities available to a country's citizens can also give it a competitive advantage in the market and make it a more or less attractive place for expanding business. The general education level of country is also a good indicator of the types of products that might sell in that locations or the type of promotional materials that might be successful. Let's take the thought that move on to the cultural exchange. As we said, culture is evolutionary and change can often be slow and painful. You are probably familiar with the cultural change that took place in the US in the 1960s and 1970s when the women entered the workforce and demanded to be treated the same way as men. In 2008, Sarah Palin became the candidate for Vice President of the United States. While she didn't succeed, she did break new ground for women. The states of the former Soviet Union and its Eastern European neighbors have also been in a state of change in recent years. The fall of communism ushers in new era of individualism and a shift away from the collectivist values and that had been in place for many years. Change is also present in Japan. As we've already discussed, an emphasis on group achievements and loyalty has contributed to much of the country's current success, but Japan's younger generation is showing signs that these values may not be acceptable anymore. Instead, the younger generation is acting more like Western managers who leave companies in search of more money and rank, who avoid overtime and who prefer to spend their free time away from the office. Why do these types of change occur? Some studies show that economic progress is associated with a shift away from collectivism and towards individualism. This would explain what's happening in Japan. For example, other studies show that the effects of economic progress on factors like education and infrastructure also contribute to cultural change. So, as countries get richer, there is a shift away from traditional values. In India, a better standard of living is encouraging many younger people to embrace Western products. Yum Brands is hoping to capitalize on this cultural shift. The company opened its first Taco Bell in India in 2010. Keep in mind though that these cultural shifts don't occur overnight. It may take generations before they are really a part of a new culture. Culture evolves over time, although changes in value system can be slow and painful for a society. Cultural change is particularly common as countries become economically stronger. And there is a need to develop cross-cultural literacy. There is a connections between culture and national competitive advantage. There is a connections between culture and ethics in decision making. It is also important to avoid being ethnocentric or believe that your ethnic group or culture is superior to that of matters. You probably heard of the ugly American or the American who believes he is better than anyone else and that is his way of doing things is better than anyone else. French people have also been accused of sharing this trait. Needless to say, it doesn't go down well or in a business meeting. When several firms from Silicon Valley opened offices in London in 2006, both the Americans and the English had to learn to adapt to new ways of doing business. Londoners, for example, who were accustomed to eating a three-course meal at a restaurant, found themselves following the Californian style of grabbing a sandwich around the conference table instead. The English also discarded their suits in favor of the more casual approach to dressing that is common in Silicon Valley. One executive from M.Pd commented that unlike the British traditions of eating just at mealtimes, his American colleagues were always eating. Keep in mind that the need for cross-cultural literacy is also not limited to face-to-face meetings. Boeing and Bell Helicopter found this out the hard way when promotional materials for the jointly developed Osprey plane offended many Muslims. Individuals and firms must develop cross-cultural literacy. Firms that are ill-informed about the practices of another culture are unlikely to succeed in that culture. Individuals must also be aware of ethnocentric behavior or a belief that in a superiority of one's own culture. Another reason for companies to be aware of cultural differences is the link between culture and competitive advantage. The value system and norms of a country influence the cost of doing business, which of course then affects the competitive advantage of firms. Remember our discussions of how a society's class structure affects the relationship between management and labor, for example, or how Japan's strong worker loyalty system and lifetime employment guarantees affect the success of Japanese companies. Similarly, a more individualistic culture promotes entrepreneurial activities as compared to a culture that emphasizes collective behavior. These differences provide companies with insight as to which countries are most likely to produce competitors and which countries will be the best for investing or selling. For example, if you are comparing two countries with similar wage costs, you'll recognize that the country with the better education system, less social stratifications, and a group identification is probably the better site for productions facilities. Similarly, based on cultural differences, we would expect strong competitors to emerge from Pacific Rim nations as compared to some other parts of the world. The connections between culture and competitive advantage is important because the connection suggests which countries are likely to produce the most viable competitors, and the connections has implications for the choice of countries in which to locate production facilities and do business. And then for the culture and competitive advantage, the connection between culture and competitive advantage is important because the connection suggests which countries are likely to produce the most viable competitors. So you have to do the research on these kinds of countries where you are going to conduct the business context. And then the second one is that the connection has implications for the choice of countries in which to locate production facilities and do the business. Okay, this is the end of our session today. Thank you very much for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.